The House Financial Services Committee recently had a hearing about private equity firms. Now, it got fiery because the party that's supposed to be more critical of these private equity firms, which have destroyed several US businesses throughout the years, decided, no, we're gonna go ahead and try to protect private equity firms because a lot of them actually fund our campaigns. Now, they didn't say that quiet part out loud, but that's what's really going on. Now, the title of this hearing was America for Sale? And one of the only people who was blunt and honest about that was Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who continues to be the voice of reason when it comes to these issues. Now, what do private equity firms do? Why were they having a hearing about this? Well, the so-called leveraged buyout firms borrow money to take over companies and then saddle them with debt, sometimes resulting in the takeover targets going bust. So that's certainly what happened with Toys R Us. That was one of the more recent examples. Tens of thousands of Americans lost their jobs as a result of that. And so while all of these questionable people on the Democratic side were defending private equity firms, AOC decided to speak truth, and here it is.
First question that I hear from so many members are, how are the returns? But the returns are great, aren't they? How are the returns? And I wasn't sent here to safeguard and protect profit. I was sent here to safeguard and protect people. And we're talking about reining in private equity, which is responsible for wiping out tens of thousands of jobs at Toys R Us alone. And then we're hearing, but what about the companies that made 100 jobs here or 200 jobs there? Toys R Us, 30,000 jobs wiped out. Shopko, 14,000 jobs. Brookstone, David's Bridal, Payless. Not to mention the impacts, the undemocratic impacts on media companies. Splinter, Deadspin, Sports Illustrated, local and regional newspapers. In the last 10 years, private equity is behind 597,000 lost jobs. And it's not just about the number of jobs. Isn't that right, Ms. De La Rosa? It's about the quality of jobs, right? When private equity took over Toys R Us, did you see folks' work schedules get cut back?
Yes, definitely.
Did you see people's benefits in some other ways cut back?
Yes.
So I love everything that she said there because it is the truth, and she gives a voice to the voiceless, people who have been victimized by these private equity firms who haven't gotten nearly enough coverage in the news, and have just been kind of tossed aside, and it's devastating. Nando, you said that you've experienced this firsthand.
Oh yeah, I worked at Univision, which in 2007 was taken private. It was a public company. It was taken private in the largest leverage buyout in media history. And it was a group of private equity firms. They borrowed a bunch of money, took the company private, and then they transferred the debt from themselves to the company in which they bought. And I remember asking people that know finance, I'm like, wait, so I wanna buy this cup, but I don't have the $10 to buy this cup. So I borrow the money from Nomiki, she gives me the $10, and then I buy the cup, but then I don't have the debt to Nomiki. The cup has the debt to Nomiki. So I can just kind of use the company to pay myself fees and dividends and all kinds of things. But if something were to happen to the cup, I don't have to pay back Nomiki. The cup is liable for it. And I'm like, how is that legal? I don't understand. You're not on the hook. You're the person who did the thing. How are you not on the hook?
So the whole point of this hearing is to pass regulations that would make that illegal.
Right. Yes.
Right? And so that's the reason why they're having this hearing. And the Democratic Party, several members of the Democratic Party who are part of this committee decided to defend the private equity firms. And I wanna give you just a few examples, and then Nomiki, I want you to chime in. So just to give you a few examples, Representative Gregory Meeks said he was actually trying to attract private equity dollars to a minority-owned company at risk of failing. Well, if they're at risk of failing now, the involvement of a private equity firm could just destroy them completely, right? Representative Brad Sherman said he was not hostile to private equity and that the industry was being attacked for doing things that are done elsewhere in our economy. then maybe we should do something about the fact that this is happening, not just with private equity firms, but elsewhere in the economy. This is a disaster, right? So the list goes on and on. Representative Josh Gothamer highlighted investment returns of private equity funds that beat the stock market.
Great.
Gothamer, whose former staffer now lobbies for the industry, touted private equity's returns for pension funds serving teachers and firefighters. It's just, yeah.
So this is ultimately, I have so much to say on this.
So many.
Number one, Gregory Meeks. For those of you who wondered what happened to Joe Crowley, Gregory Meeks now has his role in the Queens County Democratic Party. That's an integral part of New York Power, AKA where Wall Street is headquartered. So just keep that in mind. You know, Brad Sherman once ran in the most expensive House race in history. I wonder how much of that money came from rich, wealthy private equity people. And of course, Josh Gothamer, it was your district, yes. Yeah. Josh Gothamer, you know, he mentioned unions. Now this is, there are two avenues that the indefensible arguments take when they want to shift gears. Well, unions rely on this money because of their pensions. And a lot of unions are trying to get off of that pension, especially more progressive unions like CWA, Communications Workers of America, which has the flight attendants workers, and of course, the national nurses, right? So these are the types of progressive unions who are trying to veer away from this private equity money because ultimately, this comes down to a business model which hit us in the housing crisis, hits us, you know, regularly, hits media companies, it hits everybody. You know, you started off killing small businesses in the mid-90s, right? The Walmarts came in, killed the small businesses and communities. Now Walmarts are dying and the bookstores were dying because, you know, they're taken over by Barnes and Noble. Well, now you've got the Amazons taking over the Walmarts and everything is becoming monopolized, literally monopolized. And it's dependent on quarterly profits. The entire economic system, in my opinion, is flawed in that we're tying everything from elections to our financial institutions to quarterly profits, which influences our foreign policy, which influences weapons trading, which influences how people are making money. I mean, this is ultimately the problem. I want a hearing on that. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, and you know, private equity is a relatively new thing. Right. I mean, it basically started in the 1970s. One of the original innovators was a guy named Mitt Romney, who you may remember. He founded Bain Capital. He was an employee at Bain, which is a large consulting group, and he did an offshoot called Bain Capital. Basically made the industry mainstream. They used to be the big enemy for the Democratic Party. I remember Barack Obama ran against private equity because in 2012, I remember Cory Booker came out and almost teared up when he defended private equity on Meet the Press.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like, those attacks on private equity. I mean, it's like there are attacks right in here. And so it's a new thing. It's not like, you know, because often we're led to believe that these things are just the way they are. It's just the way things are. And you're naive if you think that they could be any different. I'm like, no, this thing is new.
Right.
Like we could go back to like when this thing didn't exist. Let's just take it away. We can use the power of government to take these things away.
You're absolutely right.
They're facilitators of the 1%. The 1% of the 1%. Yeah. That is the facilitation of that.
Exactly, and so when they wonder why people, and I'm specifically talking about Democratic lawmakers, when they're wondering why people are staying at home during the elections and refusing to vote for them, even if their challenger or opponent is a monster, understand it's because they see this stuff, people are paying attention. So if they feel like you're not representing them and you're not actually looking out for their best interests, what good is it to stand in a long line and vote for you? You got to give them something to vote for.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.